gentlemen, it's Wednesday. It's the 17th of August. And this is Interesting Ideas, a radio program to help you become a little more interesting, and so that you can have greater influence, greater impact, and perhaps a little more income in your life and business. Hey, here's my question. 45 years ago, last night, August 16th, 1977, I knew exactly where I was. Now, why is that true? How could it be that for some reason I knew exactly where I was on August 16th, 1977? Well, there's a very interesting story about a very famous person, and perhaps we can segue into a lesson on that might be helpful and useful to you in your life and business today. So, let's see if it works for you today as I tell you my story about 45 years ago, right at this very time. Some interesting ideas, I hope, and the program begins right now. And perhaps some of you probably know what I'm talking about. Yes, the film reminded me, and by the way, if you haven't seen the film Elvis, it's about 3+ hours and is really worth it. Particularly if you are of my age and stage and you really remember Elvis and know about him. But even if not, you're going to find that the story is incredible to go through the story of Elvis. And then, of course, the very sad story is that, 45 years ago, on August 16th, 1977, he died. And at a young man, 42 years of age. And how did that happen? Of course, that is part of the tragedy of the victory and very sad how that happened. Well, here's the deal. What had happened to me is I had made the decision after about 12 or 13 years of being a public school teacher that, I'm not so sure this is what I want to do in my life. I kind of fell into it. I was good at it. I enjoyed it. I worked at it. But I had some feelings that this is not the career for me. I don't know if I want to keep doing this for the rest of my life. And at the same time, there were things about the public school systems that I was beginning to discover, and some of the things that we now know where there are difficulties with the public education. I had already sensed that some of that stuff was coming. And so, I was looking for a way out. So I decided, what's your first love? Well, my first love has been radio, not television, but radio. I always loved listening to the radio and building radios. I was a ham radio operator as a kid and listened to shortwave radio, loved to listen to the radio, and always kind of wanted to be like those voices on the radio. So I said, I think I'll go back, and said to my wife, I think I'm going to go back to broadcasting school. And she said, how are you going to do that? You got to make a living. I said, well, I talked to Brown Institute, and this is a really great little broadcasting institute, and it was just about 3 miles from our house, and they said that they would take me and accept me for their night class, and their night class was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., which would allow me to teach school, from about 7 and 8 in the morning till about 4 o'clock, and then I could run home and get something to eat and make my way and then do another 4.5 hours of broadcast training. And it was going to be, 4 nights every week, and you did that for at least 18 months. If you wanted to be a good broadcaster, that's what they wanted to make you do. Well, it just so happened that I remember that we were doing that, and part of what they did, of course, like any good training facility, they had it like it was a real radio station. There were microphones and boards. It was just like you're going to work on it. It wasn't sitting and doing lectures. No, it wasn't sitting about. There were no books that we had to read. We were encouraged to read, but we were not given any textbooks to read. We learned it by doing it, and we learned it by having a good mentor or a guide show us how to do it, and then teach us what to do, and then do it, and then they would be there to help us do it better the next time. Fascinating. And they were very, very good and very, very tough. In fact, one time they called me in, and the mentor said, Stan, you're doing well, but you have a little bit of what we call a lisping S. I said, really? I'd been teaching school for some time, so I could present myself well. Yeah, you can't quite hear it, but we can hear it, and that's not the way a first-class broadcaster will have to be, so you're going to have to work an extra 2 hours every day and do some work, and then you're going to figure out how to correct that lisping S, and we'll tell you how to do it, and this is what we want you to do, and in 2 weeks, we're going to listen to your tape, and if you haven't corrected that, we're going to take you down to the office, and we'll give you your tuition back because you can't make it, and we're not going to take your money because the people from Brown Institute are really good, and that's why we get a job for everyone, so see if you can handle that. Wow. Well, guess what happened? I did it, and they congratulated me. Good for you, Mr. Houston. Sounds good. You're well on your way to be a professional radio broadcaster. So it was that kind of training that went through. That's where it started, where then I've been involved in some aspect of either podcast or real radio or international radio for many years. That's where it began. But can I just segue it into something that perhaps is relevant to us all? I've also got a graduate degree, which I found was very helpful from a major university. I will have to be very honest to say it was kind of an old-fashioned school, and they were not interested in any political correctness stuff. They were a bunch of older guys in the communications department at the University of Minnesota, and there was a woman or two, but these were older guys. Some of them were very Korean War veterans and things like that, and they were top-notch, and they really helped me learn quite a bit. When I was a college kid, as I say, I pursued many things, but unfortunately, education was not one of them, and it was okay. But it turns out that the very best education I got in terms of changing my view of life and changing me and changing the success pattern I was on was in what today we'd call a trade school. That's what it was. It was a trade school. I didn't get a degree. Right up there, it just simply says I got a diploma. That's what I got. I got a diploma, which says that I have successfully completed a course in radio and television broadcasting from Brown Institute. Not a college, not a university, just a place on Lake Street in Minneapolis. Actually, the same kind of, area that a lot of the rioting took place. And, that's where we went to school. It wasn't fancy, didn't have a campus. It just was a place where some very talented men and women taught young men and women how to be broadcasters and how to be good at their work. And because they were so good at what they did, the radio stations around the world, and literally around the world, but in America, they knew if they needed a good young broadcaster, if that man or that young woman had a degree or a diploma from Brown Institute, they knew that if they got a diploma from Brown Institute, they were good at what they did. They were a good start, good beginning. And then the people at Brown made this point. They said, we will make you so good that it will be very easy for you to get your first job. Now, it might be a little podunk station in North Dakota, but that's where you will start. And if you do it well, then the rest is up to you. You've gotten your foot in the place. You've got your mouth in front of a microphone. Go get them. We wish you well. If you lose your job, which you probably will because they fire people a lot, just go back to us and we'll try and place you in another job. But it's up to you to make your mark. I've just discovered that in many cases that the colleges are now lamenting the fact that enrollment is down, and it's going down. They're kind of panicky about it. Well, of course, the pandemic has contributed to that, but all of you know where I'm going. Obviously, questioning the value of a lot of what is called college education. We should not be telling our young men and women that college and that kind of formal 3 to 4 year education is necessary for everybody. In fact, it may not be necessary for the majority of people. There are hundreds of ways of getting an education which has nothing to do with going to a college or a university. In fact, even though you might not like it, the best way oftentimes to get an education is to be what Donald Trump said. Be an apprentice to somebody who's good. I teach young people now, when you're looking for your first job, don't just look for somewhere you can get a job. Go and see if you can get a job where you're working with somebody who's really good at what they do. Where your boss or your colleague or the person that is supervising you in some way is really good. They're one of the best in the industry. Doesn't matter. Just learn what it's like to be with, be responsible to, accountable to a master at their trade, their career, their craft. And then learn how to fix something. Learn how to fix something. Maybe you should learn how to be an electrician. Work for 3 to 6 months with an electrician. And so you learn how to be an electrician. Now, you still might want to be, a master's degree in financial advising, but, it's always good to know how to fix something, how to do something, how to be useful. Think about that. I don't know where this is all going to lead, but I now know that I have been very blessed because in many cases I've had people who, even in my education, and it was an old-fashioned education, I don't think I would do very well in the new environment of a college and university today. Maybe, but I doubt it. But what I'm simply suggesting is we need to change things. We cannot have young men and women graduating with $40,000 and $50,000, $100,000 in debt. College is not worth $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year. It just isn't. There are better ways to use your time and to use your education. Maybe you should take a couple years and just work before you even go to college. I would have been far better and made better use of my undergraduate if I had stayed and worked for 2 or 3 more years with the J.C. Penney Company and learned even more about being a really good retailer. And then, after I had a little bit more money in my pocket because I worked hard, I could get myself a little better car and I could probably go to university. And because I had some skills and because I had a little money in my pocket, I probably could have gotten through almost debt-free. As it was, I didn't quite get through debt-free, and boy, this ages me. At the end of my college career, they called me in and said, Mr. Husted, unless you come up with the $400 you owe us, you will not get your diploma. So I had to figure out how to come up with $400 so I could get my diploma. And you know what? I did that. Got a loan, got an extra job, And before I graduated, I had paid that $400. And within a year, I'd paid the loan back at $50 a month. There we go. I'm Stan Houston. Just some stories that might be helpful and useful to you. And it's how did we start? We began with August 16th, the sad, sad story of Elvis Presley. By the way, just a way to bring it to an end, I've got another interesting story about that night on August 16th. I'm Stan Houston. Lots of storytelling, perhaps some interesting ideas. We'll be right back. Finishing up, here we go, August 16th, 1977. Because I was the first one there to the teletype machine in which the bells were ringing and the flash came in that told about the death of Elvis Presley, I took and I tore off and I kept that first announcement of the death of Elvis Presley. Well, it would probably be worth thousands of dollars now on the Elvis souvenir market, but I don't have it anymore. I had a good friend who was a dear, dear woman and loved Elvis so much and was totally grieved by his death. And she was one of my teaching colleagues, and so just to help her feel better, I went and gave that obviously very valuable piece now to her. And I guarantee you, she still has it, and she's still grateful for the gift I gave her. But, c'est la vie, so be it, I did the right thing. Maybe I can do the right thing for you. Please reach out to me at stanhouston@gmail.com, stanhouston@gmail.com. It comes to business performance coaching and teaching you how to be a world-class podcaster. We can do that. If you want to change your life in significant ways, we think we can probably help you in some way. It will not be a degree. It will not be a diploma. It will be not only a certificate, but it will be some wisdom, insight, and truth, and will make you an honorary wit person. Take care. We'll be back perhaps tomorrow with good grace and good fortune. I'm Stan Houston. Best and blessings to you, and I do. Bless the memory and bless the dear soul of Elvis Presley. Bye for now.